Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to another lecture video. Today, we've got some good stuff to talk about. We're going to go over the genre research posts for the Unit 3 project. So Unit 3, as we talked about on our last class, is focused on web design, building a website. And part of effective web design is just kind of taking the time to think about what do good websites look like, what do bad websites look like. So we'll talk about that a little bit today and throughout this unit as well. So again, the primary goal of this unit is not so much focused on learning the mechanics of coding a website. It's more so focused on how various modes of communication, different media, kind of necessarily change the way we take up material, the ways we read material. So that's what we're going to be talking about throughout this unit: visual literacy, multimedia literacy. And part of that is looking at genre research, looking at websites, and thinking critically about how things are constructed. So we're going to start that process today, and that's going to continue between now and the end of the semester. Speaking of the end of the semester, one of the things I want to do today is also recap the grade book, talk about how points are divided up, just so everyone has an idea in terms of what's done, what still needs to be done, all that good stuff. So I have finished grading the Unit 2 projects that have been submitted. If you haven't submitted your Unit 2 project yet, make sure you are doing that. It's worth a very large part of your grade, so it's important not to miss that. And one last thing is there's a bit of homework. There's an article, How We Read Online, posted on ReggieNet. Again, this unit is focused on building our kind of multimodal and digital literacies. So this article works really well with the genre studies posts we're going to be talking about later today. And it gives us an idea in terms of thinking about what's the actual process like when we're reading things online. So this is something that I read a few years ago, and it just kind of changed the way I look at websites. So something interesting. So make sure you're checking that out. Okay, so before I get started talking about genre research, I want to just quickly recap the gradebook. So this is something that I added to the syllabus just to make it easier for everyone to keep track of what their grade is. So this was posted in the lessons tab earlier this semester, but just so it's easier to find so everyone has it, I have it listed here as well. So in terms of the grades, it's broken down into major projects and minor assignments just to keep things simple. So the major projects are your 3-unit projects. Those are all worth 20 points apiece, so that's 60% of your grade. And there's uptake for Unit 1 and 2. Both of those were worth 5 points, 5% of your grade. There's not going to be a Unit 3 uptake just because of how the semester works. Our project's going to be due essentially the day before final exam starts, so there's not really time to give you an opportunity to reflect and do the kind of metacognitive work that the uptake assignments are after. So no uptake for Unit 3. So that's 70% of your grade. A big chunk of it is towards those major projects, the final deliverables. But there are a bunch of minor assignments as well that we've had throughout the semester. So the first one are the forum posts. Those are worth 10% of your grade. You get 2 points for every one you do. The syllabus says 8 total for the semester, 4 posts of your own, 4 responses to your peers for up to 16 points. So there is some extra credit built into those. And the forum posts are still required. I'm still putting them in videos. There's hasn't been a whole lot of action on the forum, so make sure you are getting on that. In addition to the forum posts, there were also minor assignments for Unit 1, the annotation activity, where you did a little sample annotation just to kind of get used to the genre of it. That was worth 5 points. In Unit 2, for the genre research presentations, those were worth 5 points. For the posts we're doing for this unit, those are also worth 5 points. Later on this unit, there's going to be a quiz on the article, Is Google Making Us Stupid?, which will be worth 5 points. And there's probably going to be a couple extra credit assignments in there as well, just to give people a little bit of leeway. So there's only 100 points in this class. And with how this semester's kind of gone, I'm trying to be flexible with that and just give people some opportunities. Just with COVID, World War III, all the crazy shit going on in the world, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to focus. Sometimes due dates might slip out of people's minds. So that's where grades stand at this moment. So you can check the assignments tab on ReggieNet to see what you've turned in, what scores you've got on that, and all that good stuff. So this is just a recap of the grades. I wanted to get that out there so you all have that information quick and readily available to you. So I hope that was helpful. So for homework for next time, there is an article for you to check out called How We Read Online, which is posted to ReggieNet. So again, working with the same theme of web design in terms of figuring out what does good web design look like, we need to think about how people read information, how they take up information online. So part of the theme of this course is understanding how different media, different modes of communicating can kind of change the ways we look at information and the ways we take up information. So the ways we understand print documents or podcasts or websites are unique in different ways. So this article is going to help you understand the different ways that communication can change depending on what kind of media we are using. So check that out. That should be useful in terms of helping with the genre research we are conducting as well. In addition to this video that you're watching right now, there's also another video posted to the lecture notes for today, and that's the Weebly tutorial video. So for this project, you are designing a website and you have your option in terms of what platform you want to be using. And one of the options that I would suggest you use is Weebly. So Weebly is free to use. You don't have to buy anything. And when you're completing this project, don't pay for anything. If any website builder asks you to pay them money, do not do that. Weebly you can use for free. Wix, I believe, is free as well. So always choose the free option. Don't spend any extra money for this project. So just don't do that at all. So in addition to being free, Weebly is actually pretty easy, pretty user-friendly, and very intuitive to use. And I have a video up posted to ReggieNet as well that kind of walks you through how to do some basic design features on Weebly. There's also a print document, so if you prefer to read through it that way, that'll be posted as well. So these tutorials will help you as you actually go about building your websites for your Unit 3 project. And again, feel free to get creative with these and use these as a nice tool to help you learn the mechanics of these various web design and website builders. Now, transitioning away from that, I do have a couple forum posts prompt ideas for you. Again, with these forum posts, 200 to 250 words is what I'm looking for, and these are just options you have for your weekly forum posts. If either of these prompts don't really catch your attention or you'd rather write about something else, feel free to go for that. So the first forum prompt I have for you kind of asks you to focus in on the projects we've already completed this semester. All of them have been focused on your discipline, and since your websites are based on you, think about how can you adapt these assignments to work for this final course project. So the work you've already done, I have no problems with you using that again here. So think about what changes you might have to make. How can you incorporate these into a website to make it feel organic and like you're just not posting them there because they're like space fillers. Use this forum post to take some time and think about what is it you could possibly do. How can you change these projects? How can you make them fit within a website so you can work smarter and not harder on this last project? And for the second option for your forum post, this is a bit lighter in terms of subject matter. So we're talking about what makes good web design today, but let's take some time to talk about the negatives as well. So what are some of the more frustrating things you see online based on whatever websites you use frequently? What do you see? What pops up that really makes you dislike them? Is it how the site is laid out, how they have ads all over the place? What are some of the things that really piss you off when you're browsing a website, or what do you see? What are some of the things you see that make you instantly close a tab on your internet browser? So think about these, articulate them a little bit, have a little bit of fun with this. And this is important work too, because when you're designing a website, you want to make sure you're avoiding the things that piss you off, because if they make you angry, if they make you really dislike a website, you can look to avoid those and engage your audience a little bit more with some more high quality web design. So those are a couple options for you for your forum posts. And before we get started with the rest of the lecture, I do have a video to play that kind of shows the evolution of web design over time, which should be helpful in terms of helping us understand the evolution of websites. So what websites look like now, what they look like today, aren't necessarily what they look like even 5, 10, 15 years ago. So it's important to keep this in mind and understand how things change and how websites evolve over time. So check that out, and then we'll get back into the lecture. Well, that was an enjoyable video. Kind of takes me back seeing all those old websites and seeing just how much things can change over a few short years. So with that in mind, we're going to transition and talk about some web design tips. And the first tip we have is focused on designing your website around the content. As with every project this semester, I want to stress the importance of content. It's the most important thing you have. If you don't have great content, then everything else is just kind of a moot point. With your websites, try to keep it simple. Don't fill the entire page with images. Don't use a ton of text. And don't use too many different fonts. And we're going to talk about these in more detail over the following slides. As I've stated, content is the most important part of your site and almost anything you're going to be doing in life. So your content needs to be an accurate representation for your website. If you're doing the personal portfolio, digital CV approach, your content needs to accurately represent who you are as a scholar, as a person, and a potential employee. For your content, always think back to your rhetorical situation. Think, what is your purpose? What is your exigence? Who is your audience? How is that going to affect the content you make? So for the digital resume aspect of this project, your audience is potential employers, people who might hire you. Your exigency, you are trying to get hired. So with your content, some of the things you might want to ask yourself as you're putting this together is, what do your pages say about you? What features and abilities do you have that you want to emphasize? So let's say you're interested in being a social media manager or something along those lines. You might want to highlight some of your own work that you've done with social media. Maybe you have some kind of presence on a various platform. Maybe you've done some work for a frat or a sorority, or you've done some kind of internship where you've used social media. So think about experiences like that that might be helpful for you, that might be good to help build up your ethos in this website. So the same holds true if you're taking a different approach. If you're not doing the digital resume, digital CV, and you're just writing about, say, your major, your discipline, or any future goals you might have, content is still key. So you want to think about, how can you present yourself as someone credible? What do you want to emphasize? And think about what's the best way to convey your experiences, your expertise, or your goals to your audience. Another great piece of advice for your websites is keep it simple. So when you're creating a page, when you're putting things together, try to use a clean layout. Try to avoid having a whole bunch of clutter all over the place. So with your websites, you have the option to use almost any kind of media you want. So you can have videos embedded directly in the text, same thing with images, same thing with audio. So the options are essentially limitless for you. But with those options, sometimes restraint is the better approach to take. To toss some Shakespeare at you, discretion is the better part of valor, meaning that even though we have the ability to use all these things, sometimes it's better to maybe dial it back a little bit. Because when you have excessive amounts of media or excessive amounts of content on a page, it can make the websites difficult to navigate, and it also runs the risk of you burying the content that you really want to emphasize. So content is key, and that's the thing you want your readers or your people looking at your website to take away more so than anything. And you don't want to make them have to sift through a bunch of other stuff to find that content. And I have an example for you of, I think, what looks like a good amount of content and a nice clean web view. So for your projects, you're making a website about you, about your experiences, about your abilities. So with that in mind, you might consider having a page dedicated to your biographical information. So what I have on the screen right now is a screenshot from the homepage for a website I made for myself as I'm finishing my PhD and going up on the job market. So this is a homepage, just a quick introduction to who I am, what some of the various things I've done. So with your home pages, the little bit of biographical information here I think makes a lot of sense. And with your home pages, it's also useful to kind of think about these as an introductory paragraph. So when people first get to your website, what are they going to want to know? What is your key thesis? What is your purpose? Why does this site exist? So the homepage I have here just kind of talks a little bit about my academic experience and some of the things I could potentially bring to an institution. So this might be something you consider adding to the websites you're making if you do go the personal portfolio route. The layout is also relatively clean, simple, black and white, a couple pictures of me showing that I do fun things on occasion to kind of humanize me a little bit. So that's an example, something you might consider for your projects. Another good example you might want to look to is some of the sites from Illinois State University. So on the screen right now I took a little video of the Milner Library homepage, and it's a very well designed website, very user friendly, very intuitive. As you can see here, there are chunks of information, not overwhelming at any point, and everything's very clean, everything's easy to find. All the tabs listed make a lot of sense and super easy to navigate. And this is something you might want to mimic in your websites as well. So look through these and look through other ISU websites to give you some inspiration. Well, those were some good examples. What the Fuck Guy is going to get a lot of use here with the next one I've got for you. So while the other examples were very clean, this one has a lot going on, to say the very least. So you can see there's just shit everywhere on this. There's a lot of colors just kind of bombarding you nonstop. I don't even know what to say about this. It's just kind of like design vomit. It's like it kind of looks like they were given the options like, oh, we have all these ideas for a website, and they're just like, yeah, to everything without saying like, maybe we shouldn't. I mean, you do have this option if this website looks aesthetically pleasing to you and you trust Ling. Maybe you want to mimic this for your own projects, but maybe a little less is better. So another thing to keep in mind with your fonts is what font you're actually going to be using in your website. Because not all fonts are created equally. They have different benefits, they have different drawbacks. So when you're designing your websites, pay attention to what font you're using and try to use consistent fonts. As you can see with the meme on this slide, fonts do matter in terms of how the information can be perceived by others and how seriously they might take you. So font variants, if you have a bunch of different fonts, it can be kind of annoying. It can be a bit of a strain on the eyes. It can be difficult to read. And it might damage your ethos as well. So as you can see on the slide here, I have used a bunch of different fonts. And if you can imagine like reading a paragraph where every single sentence is a different font, that's not necessarily the best thing to look at, and it might really hinder your ability to be taken seriously as an author. I'm also going to use this as an opportunity to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's heavy metal. So the fonts that we're using also give us an opportunity to be a little creative, to help us stand out a little bit, but you might want to do that in moderation. So as you'll see up on the screen right now, I have a list of a bunch of black metal, death metal bands, and pay attention to which one really kind of sticks out to you. So they're really, Party Cannon is subverting the genre here by having a very bright, very colorful logo. And that's something that makes them stand out on any bill they're going to be at. So if you're going for a more creative endeavor, you want to show that you have different expertise, potentially font choice, designs might be a way to go for that. And just for kicks, here's one of their album covers, which is just absolutely fantastic. So apologies for the unexpected Party Cannon metal injection into this video. I swear I'll try to not do that from here on out. So the last piece of advice I have for you for your websites is to don't use a whole lot of text. So you want to keep your sections short and concise. People browsing your websites, think about that as reading through a resume. A resume is maybe a page, at most cover letter, page and a half. So don't just try to have a deluge of information where you write like a 5,000 word personal statement and just kind of copy and paste that directly onto your text. So use your new pages if you need to break things up, if you need to create more space. So try to keep it simple so the information you have is easy to find so your visitors can easily find it. Keep that in mind as you're creating different subpages, different page names as well. So try to think of the more obvious subpages that you have. So you might have a subpage for resume, cover letter, personal statement, podcast, multimedia projects, things like that. So think about how you're going to divide up each page and don't have it be just a single block of text that can be difficult to read. Well, that is it for today. So a last piece of advice is that all the pieces matter. So this following quote from Douglas Hyman, who wrote a book on digital rhetoric, notes that we must be concerned with understanding all the available elements of document design, including color, font choice, and layout, as well as multimedia design possibilities such as motion, interactivity, and appropriate use of media. So with your websites, you have the opportunity and ability to use all of these features. So think about how not just each of those works individually, but how is it working together on the collective whole of your website. So these are the things I want you to keep in mind as you go through and design your websites and conduct your genre research. Okay, so the last thing for today is the assignment of genre research posts. So for these posts, what you're doing is genre research similar to what we've done in the past, where you're going to analyze the genres we're working with to see what's working and what's not working. So for this, you have the opportunity to pick a website, any website you want, any website you use with any kind of frequency. In the past, people have used things like TikTok, Instagram, Fanatics, ESPN, Apple, Amazon, stuff like that. So any website you use with any level of frequency or any website you're just kind of interested in analyzing will work for this. And what you're going to do is think about the features we discussed today and what we're going to talk about over the following classes. So we're going to talk about reading online, craft design principles. Those can be real helpful as you're putting these presentations together. And what you're going to do is write up a forum post, around 200, 250 words of your analysis, or you could also put together a short PowerPoint around 2 to 3 slides for this presentation. And what we're going to do, like we did with the last ones, is post them online and just have a day of class where you can look through those to kind of generate some ideas in terms of what you might do with your websites. So for these presentations, you can work on your own if you prefer, or you can work in groups if that's something you're interested in. So if you're interested in working as a group, you can send me an email by the end of this week, and I can put all the interested students into various groups depending on how many people are interested in that, how many people sign up. So to give you some help as you're putting together these presentations, these are some questions you might consider, some things you might do to build your presentations. And again, you don't have to go through and answer all of these questions. You don't have to answer any of them. These are just to give you some ideas so you can pick and choose or write about whatever you find interesting. Each website's going to be a little bit different, so these might not apply to any site or every site you look at. So just some general talking points. You could talk really generally about what makes this a good website. What is the site doing well? You could also hone in on some of the more negative aspects, like what is this site doing wrong? What might they potentially improve upon? You could take some time to talk about how is media being used, images, video. Is there a lot of this? Is there an absence of media? You can also talk about how much text is there on each individual page. Do you feel it's too much, too little, just right? And you could also take these questions and think about them in relation to your own project that you're working on. So you could look at what aspects of the site do you like and what might you integrate into your project. You could also look at what you don't like. What are you going to try to avoid? What doesn't seem to work for you? And another thing you could do is think about how does the site compare to similar ones. So if you're looking at like Apple's website, you might compare that to Microsoft. If you're looking at Illinois State's website, you might compare that to University of Illinois or Moraine Valley Community College, something like that. So these talking points are just to give you some ideas in terms of what you might discuss in your genre research presentations. Again, these are informal. You don't have to be super academic about these. It's just talking about what you saw, what you feel, and to just give us a starting point as we start to think about what our own Unit 3 projects might look like. Okay, that's it for me today. Hopefully this presentation was informative. Hopefully it gives you a good idea in terms of starting to think about what you might do for your Unit 3 project. So as usual, if you have any concerns, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via email. But that's it for today, and good luck with Unit 3, and thanks again for great work on Unit 2 projects. Very well done, everyone.